Hey everyone, it's Shadow Joker here, and welcome to a very special video. Those of you who have seen my very first countdown, please don't watch it, it's very bad. Would know I'm a huge fan of the Five Nights at Freddy's series. As you know, it was kind of the topic of my first countdown. In that video I said it's my favorite video game franchise, which still holds up today. I still think it's my favorite video game franchise. And the day that this is going up, hopefully, is the anniversary. The 6th anniversary. Thinking from this point on, making a tradition every August 8th to try and make a Five Nights at Freddy's video. And I also have a very personal connection with FNAF we'll get into at the end of this video. But I want to cut the slack. Let's get into what this video is actually about, other than the obvious. It's about Five Nights at Freddy's. This is a Five Nights at Freddy's retrospective video. I've been with the series for quite a long time now. I want to say 5, maybe even the 6 years it's been a thing. So yeah, I've been playing these games for a while now. And in part of that is also part of why I have a special connection. But once again, we'll get into that at the end of the video. But I figured, at least for this year's FNAF video, we would take a look at each Five Nights at Freddy's game, seeing how it holds up now. And my opinion, to those of you who've actually watched my first list, my opinions have drastically changed from my first countdown. Some games that I loved back then, I don't love as much. Some games I thought were not so great back then, I think are fantastic now. And now I can talk about AR and Help Wanted. So without further ado, let's get into this Five Nights at Freddy's retrospective, starting with the first game. Now, what I did with my original FNAF list was I put the first game at the bottom. I don't understand how I could make such a conclusion. This game's fantastic! Easily one of the best across the franchise. It does something that a horror game like this can actually do pretty well. Sure, I do like it when some of the FNAF games do have a bit more lore and story attached, but it just drops you in with a couple of Easter eggs for story. That's it. And simple shutting and closing doors. Looking at the cameras. It's great. Jump scares for the most part, fantastic. The atmosphere. While I think FNAF 4, due to it, being absolutely horrifying, has the best atmosphere in the franchise, this is definitely a close second. Even when I know how the AI patterns of the FNAF animatronics work, due to the atmosphere, I still get a little jumpy when I see them moving into cameras. It does what a good horror game should. It keeps you on your toes. It was a very simple concept, but it worked incredibly well. And I just don't know what to say. Everything I've said has been said already. It's a great game. The enemies are scary. The only thing I can really add was I was such an idiot back then. Seriously, this was quote-unquote the worst in the apologies. This was quote-unquote the worst in the franchise? No, it is far from that. It's one of the best in the franchise. On to the second game. Alright, so Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Oh boy, what to say. This, once again, I put it near the bottom of my list last time. And once again, I was a goddamn idiot for that. It's just, you guys, pretty much everything I praised about the first game. But it's dialed up to 1,000 million hundred. We've got more enemies. We've got vents. We got the mask. We got flashlights. We got music boxes. It's got 10 different enemies, 11 counting the puppets. Oh boy, this game is definitely great. The only real problem I have is that since there are so many enemies, after a while you very rarely see some of the other enemies, and on some of the harder nights, the RNG is heavily stacked against you. An example that I keep running into trying to beat Night 6 of this game is that Foxy shows up in the hallway. I just flash your lights, but what you can possibly not know is that Golden Freddy can show up there at the same time. And if you flash your light while Golden Freddy's in the hallway, he'll kill you. You pretty much have to rely on RNG to beat Night 6, much less Golden Freddy mode. But that's really just a minor gripe. Another minor gripe I have is the music box mechanic. It does kind of water down the whole idea of using the cameras, since logically, other than maybe the vent cameras, there's not much reason to check any of the other cameras past Night 2. Since you need the music box to be wound, or unless you've got RNG stacked in your favor, you gonna die. Yeah, there isn't much more to say. It's really good. Like the first game, it has a lot of things that I praised about the first game, but a couple minor gripes I have with it, so definitely not the best in the franchise, though I know some will disagree with me on that. Also, the Wither animatronics are some of the more horrifying designs in the series, and they should be feared. And now it's time for the harshest I'm gonna be in this video. FNAF 3. One of my friends actually really loves FNAF 3, but I'm gonna come out and say it. As much as I used to praise FNAF 3, in hindsight, I'm more willing to say that it is the worst in the franchise. Easy. Not even gonna exaggerate here. I think it's easily the worst game in the franchise. Well, yes, one gripe that I have with FNAF 2 is that you don't have to look around the cameras a lot, since you only really need to check the puppets. But with FNAF 3, yes, it makes better use of the camera system, but since there's only one animatronic that can kill you, you can easily just cheat the nights. Sure, on later nights, it'll be very hard to avoid Phantom animatronics, which will give Springtrap the ability to actually rush to your office. So it's not as easy as it sounds. But it's I didn't like what Scott was going for, relying more on the camera system. Because it's always been a mechanic that, since on the later nights, you just have to check a couple of animatronics. If you want to live, it kind of felt watered down, yes, but once again, it's not really changing anything. It's effectively just watching Freddy in the first game, except instead of closing the door, you have to use audio lures. That's the only visible change I can see. Besides, I know the idea is that it's supposed to be burnt down. Well, not exactly burnt down, that happens in the ending, but it's supposed to be broken down and everything. But the greens, they just, they don't mesh well with me. The colors, it's just, everything just looks weird. That being said, this was the first bit of lore we got across the franchise, and actually had a somewhat pieceable together story. Not something like FNAF 4 and the games after that, but we actually got a fair bit of lore. Yes, this game does have some positives, but has a lot of negatives for me as well. And like I said, I think it's the worst in the franchise. And now for FNAF 4. This was pretty low on my list in the past, but now it's actually one of my more favorite games in the franchise. I said it had really good atmosphere in the first games segment, and I said I thought it did a really good job with storytelling in the last segment. Now it's time for me to go in depth with that. As part of atmosphere, as you can see, is you're in a little child's bedroom. Very much horrifying. I'm serious, just this area scares me. Let alone the nightmare animatronics. Probably just in design, probably my favorite group of baddies the series has seen. They're just terrifying. Specifically Nightmare, Fredbear, and Nightmare. I think those are tied for the animatronic that scares me the most. Exclusively due to their designs. But, there isn't much more to say other than the story is amazing. Sure, there were sprinkled bits of lore that I found interesting in 1, 2, and 3, but this is when I actually tried piecing together the story. Sure, you'll get the lore a bit more if you played 1, 2, 3, and 4, but the story is very standalone in this entry. I think you'll be able to get the story pretty easily, all things considered. And it's not a case of some sequels where you have to play the previous games in the franchise to actually enjoy the game for a story. Story works on its own. Sure, the sprinkled bits and pieces of lore, you'll definitely appreciate them more if you played the previous installments, but it's not a requirement. And that's part of why I think FNAF 4 is so good. Plus the jump scares are amazing. I'm still not a fan of the breathing mechanic. I know sometimes the idea is to throw you off into thinking that it's not actually breathing when it is, and vice versa. But it's kind of difficult to cope with, and ultimately, I don't like playing through FNAF 4 as much as I enjoy watching other people play it. There isn't much more to say. I think the game is utterly fantastic. FNAF's sister location. This is probably the oddball in the franchise for me, since what it does in most games would be an immediate turnoff for me. But because of the franchise it's a member of, is, at least at the time, the gameplay of Click Team Fusion got kind of stale, was refreshing. Hope 1 did this too, but this was the first real FNAF game where every night you were doing something a little bit different. It's also got a really intriguing story with, surprisingly, the animatronic characters being kinda sympathetic. As opposed to in FNAF 4, where your main character was obviously the one you're supposed to be rooting for. Due to how the animatronics are treated here, I do actually end up kind of rooting for them. Not when I'm trying to fight for my life. No, I may love Funtime Freddy, but I don't want him eating my face off. Since gameplay is different every night, it's very refreshing. I think it's great as a first-time playthrough. I still think the game is great on a repeat playthrough, but I have the most fun with FNAF games when I don't know everyone's mechanics yet. And since everyone's mechanics, and on a second or third playthrough, I learn everyone's mechanics perfectly, but since every night is different, I always forget who does what on what night. Until I get jump scared once, twice, or 50 million times. But that's the only real problem I have. The custom night I thought was great. It makes me really wish that FNAF 3 and FNAF 4 had one. Yes, technically there was 420 mode on FNAF 4, but just because it was the hardest difficulty doesn't make it a custom night. If it was a custom night, I could make my own challenges, like a Boxy only night, a Frey only night, etc. Sister Location is a great game, but it's more so something that I like as a one-time experience. Just over time, due to how things worked, I just ended up not enjoying it as much as I did the first time. FNAF 6 / Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. Yeah, I hate doing this, but just like with the third game, I think this is the second weakest in the franchise. Now, unlike the third game, it has a lot of aspects that I really like, but a lot I also don't really like. Let's start with the positives. The actual Tycoon Pizzeria Simulator in the game is fantastic. It's so good. There's a lot of fun mini games. Help Me is hilarious. And the idea that I get to design my own Freddy Fazbear Pizzeria is fantastic. And it has probably some of the best lore and story in the series. That's saying a lot considering 4, up until Help Wanted, the latest story-based experience in the game, I think all the story in the series is amazing. The one problem is the actual night-based gameplay. It consists of you doing chores for your pizzeria. Alright, that's fine. That's a mechanic I can get around. But I played through this a decent number of times, I want to say. But I still have barely any idea how all the animatronics work. And it really just... I don't like it. Like, I could be doing perfectly a run, and then just because the mechanics aren't properly explained and I can't even just pick them up easy, I die a lot and a lot and a lot, and the jump scares, for once, all the jump scares I think are pretty bad. And the worst part is I think these new animatronics, with the exception of maybe Scrap Trap, all have really cool and menacing designs. But they're wasted on low-level pathetic jump scares. They pretty much just teleport in front of you and your screen shakes. Worst part about these jump scares being lackluster, the actual jump scare noise is pretty damn horrifying. Once again, the story and lore in this one is great. We get to learn the names of the victims of the missing children's incident. Henry has some relevance in a non-spin-off game or in a book. And I do like how each of the animatronics get to be the ones that attack you. It all has story relevance to it, instead of just the typical, oh, these are the animatronics we have at the facility. In short, Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria has high highs but very low lows. And that definitely makes it one of the lesser games in the franchise. And now it's time for another one of my favorites in the franchise, Ultimate Custom Night. It doesn't really have much story. It's kind of exclusively based on you having a somewhat decent understanding of the lore. And, well, that's definitely one problem I have with Ultimate Custom Night. I still think Ultimate Custom Night is still a really good game. I've had dreams that I've abandoned of a potential FNAF fan game. And this game, because it blatantly explains each of the 50 animatronics mechanics, how I would make mechanics for animatronics work in my game. Once again, if I still wanted to make a FNAF fan game. At least if I were going for Click Team Fusion. And that's probably the biggest strength of this game. This is a very strong entry in the franchise simply because due to how easily it explains the mechanics of each and every potential character. If you want to make a FNAF fan game in the Click Team Fusion style, it gives you a pretty good basis for what you want your characters to work and how you want your characters to work. It's very good for that reason and that reason alone. Of course, if you're going for a free roam Nixon type FNAF fan game, then this game won't be of much help. The point still stands. Plus, it's just fun to play with all the different voice acting that the different characters got, and the intermissions for and being able to play in different offices. I think it's a fantastic game. FNAF VR Help Wanted. Easily one of the best in the franchise yet again. It's just so good. Like, there's really no problems I have with it. This is the last real story-based experience in the franchise. Sadly, because I really like the stories that these games tell. And I like how not every time you have to have an understanding of the lore to get the story. But as for what does right, being horrifying naturally, it's our minigame compilation sort of style, where every night you're doing something different. It's a little less because technically you do have different styles of gameplay that you do kind of have to do constantly. But it's not just one set style, and it definitely works for a game like this. I am very proud of how Steel Wool was able to turn the FNAF franchise. I was always scared of someone other than Scott himself making a game for this franchise, since Scott was so damn good at it. But when Steel Wool made FNAF VR, they did damn good. And for a lot of major games in the franchise going forward, I don't mind if they are the ones behind them. Because, once again, they're really good. Really good at their jobs. Making a horrifying, yet really fun experience. And the Dreadbear DLC is pretty solid, I want to say. It's honestly just a lot of other FNAF games wrapped into one virtual package. Does that automatically make it the best? I'm not sure. I still haven't decided anymore of what my favorite FNAF game is, but it's definitely up there for me. And now for FNAF AR Special Delivery. This is one of the oddballs in the franchise for me. I don't hate it, but I don't have super strong feelings towards it. It's alright. I do like bringing it to a friend's house and jokingly saying, "Yo, bros, I'm gonna spawn our boy, Freddius Fazbericus, in your house." And it's fun, but it's not much beyond that. It's again, not exactly a bad game, but I don't have particularly strong feelings towards it. It's fun, but I also like to sleep, so I don't play it too often. Now for the final game we're going to be talking about here. FNAF World. Probably once again, one of my favorites in the franchise. I know it's a bit of an unpopular opinion. I love FNAF World personally, but a lot of people didn't like FNAF World. Even Scott himself doesn't really like FNAF World, which kinda puts a frown on my face, as I think it's a great game. Sure, it wasn't the best game ever when it first came out, but it has a lot of charm now, and version 2.0 was a great update. And a lot of characters, some from Scott's past games, which were failed before the FNAF series really hit off. Some of them just animatronics they wanted to put in, but really couldn't. And I just really like this game. It's probably my love for RPGs, just talking, I mean, it's my favorite video game genre, period. So, of course, I'm gonna love it, but the point still stands. I just wish this game was viewed for as the fantastic game that I think it is. And those are all the FNAF games at the time of the 6th anniversary. I told you guys I have a very personal history with this series, and well, now we're at the end of my retrospective of the franchise. I think it's best I tell you that story. Me and FNAF, at first, didn't really click with each other / get along. First heard the concept and the name, and I immediately was terrified of it. So much to where my friends / brothers used to make fun of me for it. But one day, I ran out of things to do, and I decided, you know what? It's just a video game. It can't hurt you. Even if you're not gonna play it yet, you like Markiplier. Go watch him play it. And when I watched that very first episode of Markiplier playing FNAF 1, I immediately kicked myself in the leg. From concept and name, I thought this game was gonna terrify me and I was gonna have nightmares. But I fell in love with the franchise. Even games that I think are bad in this franchise, like FNAF 3 and Pizzeria Simulator, I still think they have really good elements, and I still like them at the end of the day. And, I just love this franchise. Plus, I always thought it was kinda funny how the anniversary was a day after my birthday. It's like it was destined or something. I have a very close personal experience with the franchise. After one of my birthdays, the franchise really started existing. And it's my all-time favorite. I know there are some people who think that the FNAF series is oversaturated and Scott should just stop with making games for the franchise. And maybe they have a point. Maybe in the early days it did kind of get a bit too much attention for its own good. But these are always going to be some of my favorite games. Even ones that I don't like that much. So, yeah, that's gonna be it for today. I love this franchise so much that, honestly, even though real life animatronics scared the crap out of me, real life Hardee's Raspberry Pizza existed, I'd probably want to go. Not even gonna lie, that's how how much I love this franchise. Everything from the books to the games to just everything. Fan works, the franchise, and the fan base. Even if they're not objectively some of the best things in the universe, they'll always hold a special place in my heart. That's why the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise is always going to be my favorite video game franchise. Thanks for sticking through that with me, guys. As much as I love these games, describing them all just like that for you was kinda tiring. But there may be one extra part of this video. If there's something actually added today, I will edit in my reaction to if scottgames.com is update, or if there's a trailer drop or security breach or whatever. Which, if that's the case, then this isn't the end of the video. And you have like a minute or two left. But anyway, this has been Shadow Joker. Take care. I'll see you guys for my next video. Alright, so we're here on scottgames.com. Let's properly go on the website and see. Okay, here's the new teaser of the essentially what appears to be our new suit-wearing killer. Many have theorized her actual name is Vanessa. The sort of code name is Vanny, apparently. That's what I've heard from people. It says obey. So, based on this, I actually think MatPat's cult theory might end up being correct based on this teaser. So yeah, there isn't much to react to here. But yeah, this is new teaser. I am not going into any specifics like branding the image or going into the files because I physically can't do that. If you want someone else to do that, then you should go watch someone else's video on this topic. Anyway, so that was the new FNAF teaser for the anniversary. Take care, and I'll see you guys for whatever my next video is.